The U.S. military has launched a new school to train American armed forces in how to counter the emerging threat of drones, or what it calls Unmanned Aircraft Systems, or UAS. The first academy of its kind, the Joint Counter Small Unmanned Aircraft Systems University, or JCU, will train about 1,000 troops a year.
Warfare is changing very fast. This threat right here, this current threat with respect to UAS, it's the pace of your phone changing.
This footage is from a Ukrainian drone attack carried out against Russian forces. And this video is from a Hamas drone attack in November carried out against Israeli forces in Gaza. The proliferation of small, cheap, commercially available drones is transforming modern warfare, and this has not been lost on the Pentagon. Colonel Mosef Sauda is the director of the JCU.
The pace of the need is outgrowing capacity right now. So we're trying to train as many people as possible and trying to grow as fast as possible to fit that need.
Today, students at Fort Sill are training on weapon systems to counter small unmanned aircraft.
All right, so what we have in front of us here is what's known as the Smart Shooter. What the name implies is what it does. All right, so the Smart Shooter itself is a smart optic that is placed onto the M4 weapon system to allow the soldier a better opportunity to engage small UAS threats that are very close.
Smart shooter training does involve drones, but students don't shoot directly at them. Instead, they shoot at balloons dangling below the drones on a string. The JCU said balloons are more cost-effective and, thanks to the high winds in Oklahoma, a harder target to hit.
Nice. So the soldier would place his weapon into operation the way they do for any other situation. From that point there, you would look through the optic, which would acquire the target for you, at which case the soldier would pull the trigger, and the rest of it is done by the weapon system.
Nice. The students are also learning how to use another handheld system, the Drone Buster.
Whereas the Smart Shooter utilizes the 5.56 round, this is known as an electronic attack system. So the soldier is taking this here and they're pointing in the general direction of the target that they see. And then the soldier will place it in operation, utilize various jamming means to interdict that target.
The JCU says these weapon systems, and others like them, are already in the hands of U.S. forces around the world.
It's not just the Air Force anymore that is using unmanned aerial vehicles or drones. It is also ground forces at every echelon have different types of drones that provide them with intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, as well as targeting and sometimes strike capabilities.
Before the JCU was created, soldiers who trained on anti-drone weapon systems did so within their own branches.
The Joint Counter UAS University, the intent here is to standardize and centralize the training so that we can all have interoperability as we work together and integrate the system successfully with respect to the threat.
Training typically lasts between 1 to 3 weeks. Students are selected by their commanders, but some volunteer to attend.
As far as branches of military coming through the JCU, we are seeing service members from all branches. We also train federal agencies as well as allied and partner nations.
In the years following the September 11th attacks, the U.S. deployed large, sophisticated, expensive drones for surveillance and strikes in Iraq and Afghanistan. The first time commercial drones were used in a conflict was in Iraq, when ISIS deployed the technology in the battle for Mosul.
ISIS began to modify small quadcopters and use them to attack Iraqi and U.S. forces. And this presented an unprecedented challenge.
In recent years, civilian drones modified with explosives have become a growing menace for troops in Syria, Gaza, and Ukraine.
Drones are fundamentally changing the way that militaries fight. They are allowing different states to perform missions that previously were too expensive, having an Air Force on the cheap, for example.
Many of the small drones being used in combat today in Ukraine come from one Chinese company, DJI. DJI drones aren't made to fire weapons, but they can be easily modified to carry a grenade or other small explosive. Last year, DJI said it would stop selling its drones to Ukraine and Russia because the technology was not intended to be used for military activities.
In Ukraine, you've seen just an explosion of commercial and do-it-yourself drones on a level that has never been seen before. Both parties are employing them at all echelons The Ukrainians were the first movers here. You've seen them move into first-person view drones, these small, fast quadcopters that are essentially kamikazes and crash into their target.
Students at Fort Sill are also training for an emerging threat, drone swarms. The term refers to a network of multiple unmanned aerial flying platforms integrated together by a single system.
We have the ability to replicate drone swarms here. And this is very important because as a student, you'll have a realistic appraisal of the difficulties that these different platforms present, but also you'll have an understanding of the capabilities of what you're utilizing to neutralize that threat.
Given how rapidly drone technology is developing, the Pentagon believes there's no single weapon system that can be relied upon.
You're really in a cost competition because so many of the drones are very cheap today that you don't want to be firing something that is much more expensive to intercept and destroy them.
There is no silver bullet when it comes to counter-UAS, so there is no one system that is most effective. Commanders have to determine, based off of planning factors, which system is best to be utilized against the threat. And so what we want to do is make sure we use a layered approach, using multiple systems, planning against that in different environments. Don't look for one way out. You want to create multiple dilemmas, which then makes it difficult for the adversary to develop means to defeat what you're putting together.